Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Purcell. I'm a rising senior at James Madison University, and today I'm going to be showcasing my system dynamics project on how human behavior impacts the rate that a disease becomes resistant to an antibiotic. My degree is in integrated science and technology, and while I'm not a biotech student, I'm interested in system dynamics and how we can apply systems thinking and simulation modeling to help us better understand complex problems. I've worked as a teaching assistant with my mentor, Rod McDonald, who helped me a lot with this project. And last summer, when I began, it required a lot of upfront research and reading on my part to get to a spot where I knew enough about the topic in order to be able to model it. Resistance has been a problem really since the introduction of penicillin in the 1940s. The effectiveness of antibiotics declines as pathogens become resistant to treatment through mutations and exposure. Human behaviors like overprescribing and course compliance influence pathogen mutation and antibiotic exposure. Overprescription and misuse are drivers of this issue, and the more a pathogen is exposed to an antibiotic, the more it is forced to adapt. This is sort of Darwinism and survival of the fittest. The pathogens have to become resistant or be killed off, and that's sort of where human behavior plays a role. At one point, antibiotics were reportedly as easy to purchase as a can of Coca-Cola in the United States. Work is mostly informed from literature related to the resistance of Staphylococcus aureus to penicillin. The model scope is one pathogen and one antibiotic. Prescribing intensity, so overprescription, course compliance, and public hygiene all influence antibiotic exposure and transmission of pathogens in the model, while natural mutations allow for resistance to arise sort of independently of any human behavior. The model also includes medical and public knowledge. So this sort of represents the idea that as doctors and also the public learn about resistant infections and resistant deaths, they may improve their actions to try and mitigate this issue. So the medical community may learn more about the disease and update guidelines, which improves the overprescribing issue, while the public might be more likely to finish their full course of antibiotics and also take the proper dosage.
I'm going to transition into the model's user interface and the different policy tests. These levers are approximated with available data for the base run. So I'm going to go ahead and run that now. And we can see this generates logistic growth behavior for both the average number of sick per year with the resistant strain and for the fraction of sick people with the resistant strain. And this is kind of what we expect because it matches the initial sharp upward trend of resistance between Staphylococcus aureus and penicillin. And what's important here is how long the antibiotic remains effective and when that sharp upward trend in resistance emerges. The first policy I'm going to manipulate is the prescribing intensity ratio. So by increasing the amount of unnecessary prescriptions, we can see that resistance emerges earlier, and this is because more pathogens are exposed to antibiotic selection pressure, while reducing the amount of antibiotic overprescription increases the effective lifespan of the antibiotic and sort of delays that resistance growth. The reinforcing feedback remains in both cases. What changes here is when it begins to dominate the system. Treatment compliance produces a very similar result. Higher compliance reduces how many exposed pathogens survive and thus delays resistance, and lower compliance accelerates resistance growth. So again, this policy changes the timing of resistance rather than the eventual outcome. Public hygiene was included to represent things like wearing a mask and washing your hands and things of that nature. We can see that optimizing hygiene buys time before vicious cycles accelerate antibiotic resistance, while lowering hygiene increases the transmission and total pathogens in the population. There's more spread, which allows for more possible mutations and exposure. This all allows resistance to emerge quicker. Overall, the results show that resistance can be meaningfully delayed by optimizing these policies. Across each test, the system behaved in very similar qualitative ways, and the only thing that really changed was the timing of resistance emergence. Even with the introduction of balancing feedback through adaptive learning by both the medical community and the general public, these reactions took too long to occur, and the reinforcing feedback driving resistance growth couldn't be overcome. Ultimately, this highlights how feedback structure and time delays shape resistance dynamics, and why recognizing these processes might be critical for preserving the effectiveness of our existing medicine. That's going to conclude my video for today. Thank you so much for watching.